Before we talk lockers and cute baskets, let's talk floors. I was a little stumped on what to do about the transition. I did like the tile, but because of the height difference between the tile and the flooring we installed in the rest of the house, there would have been a significant lip that would have been a major tripping hazard. In the end, I decided to use Bondo to bridge the gaps and continue the flooring over the tile. The tile had suffered some stress from all the construction anyway, and I couldn't get it clean. And honestly, nothing makes a space feel cleaner faster than new floors. Since we were severely lacking in storage in this old house, I knew I wanted a coat closet for all of our winter gear. I started by building a base out of 2x4s and anchored it into the studs in the wall. I just used 3/4 of an inch MDF and built a simple box that I screwed into the studs in the wall and onto my base. I measured my space and built the bench, again using 3/4 inch MDF. I put braces across the back so I could use them to anchor it into my studs, and also to add stability to the bench. I didn't get footage of this part, but here you can see I built my bench top and have dry fitted it to the bench. I also used 1x3 furring strips to add the front trim to my closet and bench. I wanted to make sure I had plenty of space at the top for crown molding, so I made sure it was a little bit thicker at 4 inches. I stained and attached my bench top to my bench by coming in with screws from underneath, and I also added a 10-inch strip of MDF on the wall that would serve as a cleat for my shelf, and also a place to screw in my hooks and corbels. Check out the link in the description for how I made my corbels. I ripped down some more 3/4 inch MDF into 3-inch strips and used them to add my board and batten along the back of my wall, purely for decoration. You'll notice that my cubbies are not evenly spaced. That's because there is an outlet that I would be covering up if I had 3 cubbies of the same size. So I worked around that. Once everything was caulked and sanded smooth, I primed and painted the whole thing a soft white. Then I added matte black hooks and pulls that somehow make even bags and coats look chic. For the other side of the room, I started by building a simple base out of 2x4s, just like I did on the other side. I built a simple box out of MDF for my cabinet. Originally, I built a base for my cabinet as well, but I accidentally built my cabinet too tall, and it wouldn't fit with the base. So I settled with just putting it on the ground. Once I had my base in, I built the box for my bench out of MDF. I could have put a full piece on the back wall, but I had an outlet that I didn't want to cover up, and I also wanted to conserve wood, so I just screwed in some strips of MDF instead. After I had my bench in, I trimmed it out with strips of MDF, which is always my favorite part because that's when things look exciting. For the front of my tall cabinet, I used wood rather than MDF because I was going to be attaching a door to it and needed it to be strong. I also made sure the upper face frame of my cabinet was extra tall so that I would have enough room to attach both crown molding and a door to it and still have a decent amount of space in between. You want to be sure you have plenty of room for the door to lay flat when it's closed. I added a shelf with cleats underneath to support it because I forgot to do that before I installed it, then added the crown molding and face frame. Next up was to install the shelving. I removed some of the crown molding because I decided to do closed shelving rather than open shelving at this point. For my corbels, I used a triangle piece of 2x10 and some scrap pieces of oak screwed together, and this time around I attached them to my backing before I attached it to the wall. This made it so I could screw them in from behind and hide the screws, rather than screwing them in from the front. For the upper cabinets, I built a box out of some scrap plywood and put a backer on it. I then used that to attach it to the studs in the wall. I shoved it in there and it fit perfectly snug. Again, I added the face frame made out of wood attached with 1 1/4 inch brad nails. This made it a little tricky for adding the middle supports, but I drilled pocket holes with my Kreg jig and screwed them in from behind so the screws were concealed. From there, I added my crown molding. Up next was time to build the bench top. I started by running one long side of two 2x10s through my table saw to square off the edge. Then I drilled several sets of pocket holes in one of them and screwed the two pieces together. Since I shaved off the end, it made it have a nice tight fit with no gaps. I also shaved down a 2x3 to use as the fixed piece that would hold the other side of the hinge. After staining, I screwed on a continuous hinge and lid support to allow me to open up the bench top. The lid support allows me to lift it up so it will stay and also keeps it from slamming down on fingers. And finally, time for caulk, wood filler, and paint. I caulked all the corner seams and wood filled all the flat seams. Once the wood filler dried, I sanded it down and painted it a new gray by Sherwin-Williams. I built the doors but didn't get any footage of the process. But it's best to use a hardwood like poplar for the doors, or you might end up frustrated like I was because soft wood will warp and won't cut straight. Once the entryway built-ins were done, I couldn't help but notice the front door looking a little sad. So I gave it a quick refresh with primer and paint, and boom, instant facelift. It's amazing what a couple coats of paint can do. Each person has a hook, a basket, a bench spot, and I get to pretend this will organize the chaos. So yeah, this DIY mudroom might look fancy, but it was built with a circular saw, a lot of small interruptions, and some determination. You can totally do this too.